Here comes a guy who is so full of his new age stuff.
If they equate Cosmic Carlos with something that they don't understand because they're too much in the frequency.
What if the secret to Santana's tone isn't gear at all, but the 6 ghosts whispering through every sustained note? He calls it going inside the note, where melody outlives technique and feeling outruns speed. Today we're tracing the exact fingerprints he kept: a jazz architect, a gypsy mystic, a blues preacher, a fusion monk, a British poet, and the cosmic spark who lit the match.
Yeah, it's a Paul Reed Smith, this gentleman who built it. He had a dream, and like everybody else, but his dream was very tangible.
Hear them once, and you'll never unhear them in Carlos again. This isn't a countdown. It's a map to the source. 6 doors that opened the same cathedral. And the last one? He shook Carlos's hand and blessed his choice of notes. But that wasn't the whole story. Number 1. Wes Montgomery. Start with a thumbprint. Wes didn't pick. He caressed. Octaves bloomed like church bells, and lines felt conversational, never crowded. Santana credits Wes with teaching economy, patience, and how to make one note feel sacred enough to breathe on its own. Listen to Santana's long sustains and vocal bends. There's a quiet promise inside each phrase that traces back to Wes's melodies. Octaves that sing, chords that flow. That's where Carlos learned restraint as a weapon. Not a limit, intention became the real amplifier. And Wes lit that fuse. The thumb tone, the round attack. The belief that melody is a story, not a stunt. Picture 2 notes an octave apart, struck by a soft thumb, swelling like twin lanterns in fog. Wes's signature move. Carlos borrowed the patience in that gesture. Arrive late, let the air ring, then answer yourself with a line that resolves like prayer. When he holds a note to the edge and won't hurry, that is Wes's discipline. It shaped more than touch. It shaped inner time and space. Wes could imply harmony with a careful brush, then step aside and let silence complete the sentence. Carlos keeps that human breath in every line. You can hum it. The ear trusts it. That's why a Santana solo feels inevitable. Phrases land where your chest expects. Wes taught him to choose, to mean, to wait. Beauty over volume. A note held with love outshines any flurry. If you've felt a Santana line bloom from hush to halo, you've already met Wes Montgomery without knowing it. The lesson is permanent. Fewer words, truer meaning. Fewer notes, deeper spirit. And the patience Wes instilled becomes the launch pad for what comes next. Tones from distant markets, trance-like cycles, and an ear that wanders beyond the map without losing home. Number 2. Gabor Szabo. Imagine opening the window and hearing 3 countries at once. That's Szabo. Hungarian folk, American jazz, and a shimmer of Indian classicism drifting through modal patterns. Santana calls him elegant and essential, the gypsy accent that keeps his palette wide. Those hypnotic circling figures in Europa, or the meditative climb of a long Santana solo, they carry Szabo's passport stamps. It wasn't just notes, it was worldview. Szabo proved a guitar can switch languages mid-sentence and still make perfect emotional sense. Carlos lifts that lesson wholesale. Repeat the phrase until it becomes a spell, then bend it toward light. The point isn't to play faster, it's to play deeper, to put incense on the tone and let the rhythm feel like walking through a crowded bazaar. He needs Szabo's color the way a cook needs spice. Without it, the dish is fine. With it, the dish is alive. Listen for the modal perfume in Carlos's lines. The Dorian sighs, the Phrygian smoke, the subtle ornaments that make a single note feel older than the chord beneath it. Even his sense of dynamics echoes Szabo. Start with a whisper, rise in small waves, and save the blaze for the final turn. That's why Santana's longest sustains never feel static. They rotate, they breathe, they invite you to lean forward. Szabo taught him that repetition isn't laziness, it's trance. And trance is how you cross borders without leaving the stage. In Santana's universe, Szabo is the quiet compass pointing east and west at the same time. Proof that a melody can travel, gather dust and sunlight, then come home brighter than it left. And just when elegance seems enough, the next teacher arrives with pure church and a voice like thunder. That pulse would anchor Carlos before fusion stretched his horizon even further into infinity. Number 3. B.B. King. Now we enter the church. B.B. didn't waste words, and he didn't waste notes. He showed Carlos the difference between playing and speaking, between filling space and letting space do its own talking. That wide vibrato, that slow, aching bend that lands exactly where your chest tightens, you can hear Lucille's DNA inside it. Santana has said he came to fusion by fire, but his fire came from blues, placing a note, holding it, and making it mean more because you left the next one out. The lesson is brutal in its simplicity. If you can't hum it, why are you playing it? That's why Carlos's phrasing feels singable even when the harmony gets exotic. He keeps the lyric center. He keeps the human breath. B.B. turned the guitar into a storyteller with perfect timing. What King taught him next was space. Silence isn't emptiness, it's architecture. Carlos learned to let a line hover until the room leans forward, then answer with a tone that feels inevitable. The vibrato carries memory. The pause carries meaning. That's the difference between fireworks and a slow sunrise. In Santana's hands, the phrase doesn't chase approval. It seeks resonance. He bends a string not to impress, but to reach a pitch where feeling lives. And when he holds it, just a heartbeat longer than you expect, the note seems to pray. B.B. also gave him courage. Faith that one perfectly placed tone can move more air than a blur of scales. Presence over pyrotechnics. Taste over temptation. Listen to any long Santana sustain and you'll hear the sermon, the inhale, the hush before release. That's B.B.'s pulpit. And because blues is dialogue, Carlos learned to negotiate with the chord, to lean against the harmony until it yields without breaking. He doesn't rush the landing, he invites it. That patience is pure Beale Street wisdom. The next influence would show him how to ride that same fire at impossible speed without losing the prayer inside it. 4. John McLaughlin. This is where velocity meets devotion. McLaughlin didn't just play fast, he aimed speed at transcendence. When he and Santana cut Love, Devotion, Surrender in 1973, the goal wasn't chops. It was communion. 2 guitars as one prayer, tuned to Coltrane's fire and Sri Chinmoy's silence. Carlos calls that era a leap, out of pure blues comfort and straight into deep water, where rhythms mutate and harmony opens like a third eye. What he took from John wasn't only technique, it was the belief that intention can outrun the metronome. Aim higher than applause, and your hands will follow. McLaughlin wired discipline into Santana's phrasing. Fast lines became purposeful. Tension stacked in clean arcs, then released like a held breath. Even when the tempo blurs, the center holds. You hear it whenever Carlos escalates a phrase, lets it hover on the edge of feedback, then resolves with mercy. That balancing act, danger without chaos, comes straight from John's example. He proved speed is a color, not the painting. Without spirit, it's noise. With spirit, it's light. There's another gift here. McLaughlin gave Carlos permission to fuse devotion with daring, to treat practice like meditation, to turn a difficult scale into a doorway rather than a dare. That's why Santana's fiercest passages still feel humane. He's not racing you, he's inviting you into a current. One step deeper, one layer clearer. And when the peak arrives, it isn't a stunt. It's a view. The lesson stuck. Play like you mean it, and the room will change temperature. That's the thread tying their records, their friendship, and Santana's later live peaks together. Precision in service of presence. Technique braided to prayer. Listen back to their shared Coltrane hymns, and you'll hear it clearly. Speed humbled by purpose, and purpose shining through every sustained note. 5. Peter Green. Some guitarists chase thunder. Peter Green chased twilight. He could fold sorrow into sweetness and make a Les Paul sound like a whispered confession. Santana openly credits Green alongside B.B. King as the melodic compass he wanted to fuse with Latin pulse, the lyrical ache of British blues over congas and timbales. That's why Carlos's melodies feel sung rather than stacked. Green's phrasing taught him that economy can be poetic, that a line can smile and bruise at the same time. Green also gave Carlos a North Star for tone. Clear, vocal, honest, almost fragile in its courage. Listen to the lineage in Black Magic Woman. Green wrote it as a minor key invitation that leans more on mood than muscle. Santana kept the melodic skeleton, then wrapped it in percussion, Hammond shimmer, and longer harmonic vamps. The feeling stays Green, melancholy with sunlight at the edges, but the body moves differently. That balance, lyric center plus rhythmic lift, is Green's gift reframed. Technically, the lesson is restraint with detail. Micro bends that imitate a human sigh. Vibrato that widens only at the end of a phrase. Rests positioned like inhaling before a difficult truth. Green showed Carlos how to make one sustained note feel conversational, how to let harmony turn the same pitch into changing weather. It's why Santana can speak softly and still be unmistakable. Most players prove power by getting louder. Green proved courage by getting quieter. He trusted vulnerability, the crack in the voice that tells you the story is real. Santana absorbed that trust and carried it into every ballad and every long mid-song prayer. Plenty can roar. Few can murmur and leave the room breathless. When Carlos leans back, lets a note bloom, and refuses to rush its goodbye, that's Peter Green living inside the tone. Utterly patient. 6. Jimi Hendrix. Every myth needs its lightning strike, and for Santana, it was Jimi. Their brief meeting, Hendrix praising his choice of notes, didn't inflate Carlos's ego. It detonated his curiosity. Hendrix proved the entire rig could sing. Amp, speakers, pedals, feedback, the room itself. That revelation unlocked Santana's sustain as prayer aesthetic, where a single note is allowed to bloom until it glows with overtones. He didn't try to become Jimi. He accepted Jimi's permission slip to break the frame. Treat electricity like emotion. Let texture carry meaning. Bend the rules until the sound feels human again. That's why you hear Carlos hold a note on the edge of feedback. Never chaos, always conversation. Then resolve it with a melodic line you can hum. Hendrix also validated fearlessness. If the intention is clear, the noise organizes into music. Santana carried that lesson from the late 60s onward, using color and sustain not as gimmicks, but as a spiritual vocabulary. The point wasn't volume or spectacle. It was the courage to let the guitar breathe like a living thing, to make space part of the phrasing, to let risk feel beautiful. Hendrix's example turned experimentation into devotion, transforming the gear from a toolbox into a temple. That's why, even decades later, Santana talks about going inside the note, a Hendrix-era inheritance that treats tone as a doorway rather than a destination. In every long haloed sustain, you can hear the echo of that blessing. Your choices matter more than your speed. Your ear is the instrument. The guitar just translates. Hendrix remains the cosmic catalyst in Santana's lineage, the spark that made possibility feel inevitable and taught him that when spirit leads, the sound finds its own wings. Put these 6 together and you get the Santana paradox. Soft hands, huge heart, fearless ear. Wes gave him patience. Szabo gave him passports. B gave him church. McLaughlin gave him altitude. Green gave him lyric truth. Hendrix gave him the sky. That's why one Carlos note feels like a sentence. You're hearing a choir, not a soloist. Keep that in your head the next time a sustained line lifts the hair on your arms. That's not just tone, that's lineage. And if you want the rabbit hole, start where he always starts,
Step inside the note and don't come back until it answers you.